over here in this top drawer, there are 3 what are called flexible shaft machines. These are going to be a great help to you in finishing, speeding up the finishing process. And you want to be very careful when you take them out of the drawer. They have this part, this piece. You're actually okay. I'll show it again closer to the camera. But this piece, this is the shaft. You have to be very careful with this. There's a shaft inside of this sheet that if you bend this, it will snap. And then either Paris or I will have to take it apart to replace it. And neither one of us enjoys that. So please be careful with this. All right, you're going to carry this over to your bench. And we have 3 of these portable flex shaft hangers. This one just happens to be right here at my bench.
Do you need help?
It's very big, Will, in your view. It's not that big here in person. And oh, what I do want you to see is that there's a hanger on the motor, and that's going to hang right on that hook. And these are portable, so they have a C-clamp. You can move them anywhere you like. And then what you want to try to do is keep this shaft as straight as possible. There's a foot pedal that's called a rheostat that's connected to it. It goes on the floor. That's going to control the speed and the power. And then the power cord will plug in right at your bench. Possibly. There we go. Okay. Now also in that same drawer, I'm going to bring them out and bring them to my bench. There are kits with different abrasives and polishing compounds that you can use on here. So we have one kit that says sanding and grinding. And then we have 4 boxes of polishing compounds. I'm only going to take out the Tripoli because that's the only one you're familiar with so far. So bring those over to my bench. And you need a chuck key, which is also in that drawer. All right, let me get this situated better. Or not. I think this could go down a little bit. Oh, not by that. All right, maybe move back a little bit. Where's my bench pin? Sorry, Will.
It's okay.
Okay, there's my bench pin. It's over here. This looks so big today. On my screen anyway. There it is. I feel like I've got a zoom lens on. All right, that might be okay. I'll just move these wires out of the way. All right, so your foot pedal's on the floor. Turn that this way. And the motor has an off-on switch. So if you step on the foot pedal and okay, this is on. There's a, this switch would turn the power off up on the motor, but somebody didn't turn it off, so we're good. All right, this wire is in my way. Okay, throw that around there. There we go. All right, now safety first. Eye protection and long hair pulled back. This is similar to the polishing machine, except a lot smaller. So this is going to rotate high speed. You don't want to get it caught in your hair. While the polishing machine would rip your hair out of your scalp, this will not. This will just roll itself right up. And by the time it gets to your scalp, you hopefully will have taken your foot off of the rheostat. And the flex shaft would stop working. And dust mask, well, we're gonna be wearing dust masks anyway. My glasses are gonna fog. Okay, that's not gonna work. All right, so the first things I'll show you are the sanding.
The roost bar will stop the fog.
Oh, really?
Yes. Want to try it?
I didn't know that. I have one in the cabinet.
Here.
Then won't the glasses be greasy?
Not really.
No?
Yeah. No, it'll be ultra clean. Watch them fog up first and
Probably. It's usually the way. Yep. There they go.
They still fog up?
Fogged immediately.
The tissue right here, it will take the moisture that your breath has, and absorb it, and then it won't fog up.
Okay, all right, we're good. I'll be okay for the demo. If I was actually working for a while, I would be concerned, but I'm all right. Okay, so what we have are a bunch of attachments that fit into the end of this. It has a chuck like the drill press. And then we have sanding drums, like so, sanding drums. They're good for the insides of rings. Other than that, I don't think we use them much. We have sanding discs. And I just want to mention too, that this does not replace handwork. It helps speed up the process, but it doesn't replace it. And I'll explain why as I show you these attachments. This is a little grinding wheel. You can grind down big lumps of solder with that if you need to. And you can actually create a nice texture with the grinding wheel. And as always, someone has taken my wheels off of a mandrel. Okay, we have rubber wheels. These are embedded with silicon carbide grit. And you can remove scratches, you can remove some excess solder with these, but I have to change the wheel. This wheel is so small, it's just about out of, this is they're called Kratex wheels. The rubber embedded with silicon carbide grit. I have to change that with a screwdriver enough to do the demo. Okay, so first, let's see, I should have a piece in here that has excess solder on it. Old demo. Oh, okay, there's some really nice excess solder on this piece. All right, so this is a big lump here. So maybe I'll try the grinding wheel on that first. So the first thing I have to do is open up the chuck enough to allow the mandrel to fit in there. There it is. Now the mandrel should go in as far as they can go in. Don't just put them in a little bit and then tighten the chuck because they'll tend to snap. So let it go in as far as it will go. And then this one you can't tighten by hand. You have to tighten it with the chuck key. This is too far away. All right, you want to make sure that you get them in straight too. Tighten all 3 holes. There we go. We have these little cushions on them to reduce the vibration to your wrists. All right, now I'm going to just test this. I'm going to put my foot on the foot pedal and just let it run a little bit so I make sure that that is in straight. And it is. If it wasn't straight, I would see it wobbling. Okay. All right, so this controls your power off and on. Step on it lightly, you get a little bit. Step on it more. You never run this at this high speed. There's no reason for it. All right, when you're working on pieces, you want to hold the piece up off your bench. This way you can't apply a lot of pressure. This is going to remove metal. It's going to really dig in. So you want to make sure that you hold it up in the air with your hand. And with this grinding wheel, you have to be really careful. I'm just going to kind of take a little bit of time. This is going to put scratches into the metal. This is pretty cool. It'll take that lump down, which it did, and I could get the rest of it and the scratches out probably with the rubber wheel. So I'll change. I don't know, the grinding wheel scratches might be too deep. We'll see.
That, just a question, that wheel that you have there, is that the thing that has the embedded metal in it?
No,
Oh, okay.
the rubber wheel does. All right, so we change.
Is the rubber wheel less?
It's not as coarse.
Oh, okay.
So it would have worn down that lump of solder, but not as fast, but with less scratches. Now, when I use this rubber wheel, I like to move it in a circular motion. Going back and forth, like I did with the grinding wheel, you can actually put ruts into your metal. So similar to the polishing machine. And you also have to watch out for edges, like with the polishing machine. Now this, you don't want to try to clean up a whole piece with this rubber wheel because this leaves like swirly marks on the metal. So you can do small areas with this. Getting after the scratches, pretty good. I don't have my glasses on, so it might not be as good as I think it is. But I don't see any solder now. But what I do see is a little bit of a dip where I was using the wheel. So it definitely removes metal. Now, if I move up this piece, it's actually getting rid of this excess solder. So for small areas of excess solder, this is pretty good. Cleans it up easily and doesn't put all those scratches in. Now what I probably, if I was close to final finishing and I was doing this, I would probably want to go polish this on a machine with Tricoli, and that should remove any swirl marks that I'm making with this wheel. All right, so there was a little lump of solder at this end, and it is coming off. Wasn't as big of a lump as the other end. So you try these things out and see if they're going to work for what you need them to do. All right, so that's pretty good. But I still do see that kind of indent. You can see, you can pass that around, where I was with the grinding wheel. Now, the other thing I can do with the grinding wheel, which I already have, one's done that I could pass around. So you do some dirty though. Let's say on a sweat solder, let's say I had a rolling mill texture on the top piece and I got excess solder in it. If I emery that, I'm going to remove my texture. Even with the rubber wheel or the grinding wheel, I'll remove the texture. So rather than have to start the piece over, maybe I can swap the texture out for this grinding wheel texture. So that's already been done on this piece. So I'm going to change this wheel. It's not a bad texture. You can experiment with that. It doesn't have to be, you know, straight back and forth like that one. That's just my preference. You could play with swirling it around, and I would test that out on some scrap metal before I did my actual piece. But if you have that sweat joint and you have solder in a texture, you don't have too many options. It's either start it over, start from scratch, or start from scratch, not scratch. Or you can try this. So we'll pretend this has a rolling mill texture on it. I got solder in it. And so I want to replace my rolling mill texture with this grinding wheel. This will grind out the rolling mill texture and put a new texture on the piece. So if I want, this used to be called, I don't think there's much of this around anymore, but it was called a Florentine finish. And originally this was done with files. And it was a final finish. It was kind of a scratch brush or scratch finish. So if you want that, you want to make sure that you make nice neat rows and you overlap them. And if this was a piece, I would mask off the bottom piece of metal around the edges of the sweat joint. I will put masking tape on there to make sure that I don't scratch the bottom piece with this wheel, because it could. But you can also play with making a pattern. I don't know what happens if I do like a swirl. Could be interesting, might not be interesting. You could try going in different directions. Ooh, swirl's not bad. I don't know. All right, so that's with the grinding wheel. Now, okay, to the grinding wheel. The rubber wheel can also, you have a new one on, which I will put on. You have a nice sharp edge on that new wheel. You should be able to get into or very close to, I won't get in there with this wheel. And also because the wheel is too small. I should be able to get into crevices like here. There's excess solder here. If I had that larger wheel on a nice sharp edge, I should be able to get right in here to clean up excess solder. Now, what do I have to watch out for? If I'm left-handed, the wheel is turning away from me. So I have to watch out for these edges that are, no, actually the wheel is not turning away from me, I'm sorry. It's turning towards me. So actually it's throwing the dust that way, which is kind of nice. If you're right-handed, it's the opposite. I have to watch out for the edges that are closest to me. They could grab the wheel, and yes, you'll take your foot off the rheostat, but you could still go around and underneath, and you might even go across your fingers. And if you have the grinding wheel on, it hurts. The rubber wheels are not so bad. Now I can even sharpen up these rubber wheels if I take an old file and run them across an old file. It will sharpen up the edges. I wouldn't do it on a good jewelry file because you might wear the teeth down eventually. All right, so this little wheel got in there somewhat, not as good as the larger wheel was. It's not big enough. Take it on this side. This would even help with getting rid of any traces of that pink copper fire stain. Rather than spend hours emerying, I could get in with this and get rid of that copper fire stain. And this is safer than the polishing machine, trying to get into that little seam with the polishing machine. The other thing we have are sanding discs. these have the grit. These are pretty fine though. The grit is on the top. Although I do think you can reverse it and use them the other way around. So if you've done your coarser emery and you want to run over your pieces with this finer emery, this might speed up the process. But again, you have to be careful with this because of the speed, and it's already going in a circular motion, but I still tend to move it in a circular motion anyway. So if I run over this with so might remove some of the swirl marks from the rubber wheel.
You're actually using the black part of that.
Yeah, that's where the grit is. It's kind of messy, kind of swirly, and it gets hot fast. The nice thing about these is that I can use them on a curved surface too. It doesn't need emery, but I just want it anyway. I don't have anything else curved. So if I can go the other way and go in like so, and I can run over a curved surface. Easy to use. I can emery down something that's sharp. If I have a sharp edge, I can emery it down with this. Speed that up. All right, the inside, oh, this is going to fit inside that ring. Yeah. Has to be a big ring. You have different sizes. You have a really big ring? All right, that'll fit in there. Let's see. You got your metal? Is this the one you were making? No. Okay.
No, that's made by me.
I lost the larger drum. Well, actually, you know what? I don't want to do it on there because it's going to make the ring bigger. It'll remove metal from the inside, so it'll make it a little larger. So this one's fine. This is just a demo piece. And the drum is rather worn out on this one. So it needs to be replaced. But just to show you how to use this. So if my ring was just a little too tight, or if I had a lot of excess solder on the inside at the solder joint, I want to take the drum and put it inside the ring and then put the power on. This will heat up real fast, so be careful. I'll just spin the ring around on it, and it'll remove material or excess solder from the inside. And just keep going as long as you need to. If the piece gets too hot to hold, put it down, let it cool off, and then go back to work on it. Now the other thing I have in here that I really like is a split mandrel that you can put a strip of emery into and make what we call flapper. All right, so I'm going to try to cut this strip not too much wider than the length of the split in the mandrel. These are glued together, kind of. All right, and then I will go ahead and put the mandrel in the chuck, and then I'll insert the a little bit. And now you have to figure out which way to put the emery in. I always forget. I have to do it a couple of times. Because this is going to spin. All right, so which is the right way? It's turning toward me. So you put it in the slot. This is going to be the right way. There we go. And so again, you can use this on curved pieces. I can do the outside of the ring with this very easily. And it doesn't make marks like the wheels do. I could even go, if I can get it in there, yep, and go inside. It's a little too fast. I need to clean up anything inside the ring that I didn't get with the drum. I go with the flapper. So this is a neat thing. We use this a lot. When I first got out of college, I worked in a jewelry store. We used to use this all the time. So I can even get all across a flat surface. Pretty fast. I don't think I would use this for a final cleanup. What I might do is run over the piece with this and then go in and finish up by hand. You'll get a much neater surface if you do it by hand. But you could also try this and then go to the polishing machine and polish with Tripoli and see if it removes any marks that this leaves. This was 400 grit, so it wasn't the finest. I could also go over that with 600 and see if that's any better. So you have an assortment of things. When you can't get the Chucky in there, just push this cushion down. There's an indent right here where you can fit the Chucky in. But this thing keeps moving up and it blocks it. All right, so that's grinding and sanding. And then we have, for each of the polishing compounds, which I'll get to the other ones in the coming weeks. Right now, I'll just show you the Tripoli. We have Tripoli in here. So there's a little container with the polishing compound. And then there's little buffs, small fluffy buffs, bristle brushes, just like we have in the big, over at the big machine. We also have these guys. These are called end brushes. These are good for getting, actually, I don't think we do anything where we really need these, but these are great for getting inside prong settings, which is not in this class, because you can't get in there on a polishing machine to clean up a prong setting. But you don't have to worry about that. We also have the hard felt buffs for deep scratches. And what else interesting in here? Oh, there's a little pointy felt buff